Shrikant, what if I told you that our modern justice system, even if it worked perfectly, is still bad in many ways, right?
Even if it worked perfectly?
Even if it worked perfectly, right? Even the theory is bad.
Okay, right? I would be very, very surprised, and I would have a very questioning look on my face.
Let me take an example.
Okay.
This is from the book The World Until Yesterday by Jared Diamond. Totally worth reading. But in New Guinea, there was a small boy. He suddenly darted in front of a vehicle on the road, and there was an accident. The boy died. Okay.
Sorry.
The driver, in that case, immediately left the scene. He didn't stick around. He went to his company, told the owner. Owner told him to go away to his village and stay there for a while until things settle down.
Okay.
The owner then went, looked up the boy's parents. Right. Now it also turns out that the driver was from one community and the boy's family were from a different community. Okay.
Okay.
So what the owner of the company did was he went to an elder in his own community who was experienced. Okay. That elder went and talked to another elder in the other community. Okay. They together discussed the situation. They checked the fact that it was really not the driver's fault.
It was genuinely an
accident and so on. Based on that, they negotiated a settlement that both sides would be happy with. Okay. Settlement involved this side giving money and a bunch of food.
Okay.
Once the settlement was agreed in principle, then afterwards the settlement had to be done formally. Okay. So again, the owner of the company took the driver's uncles, brothers. So a bunch of them went. They went to
the driver was still somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason the driver was somewhere else was because it is still possible that some hot-headed members of the boys' community might get angry and kill him or do something bad, and that neither side wants that, right? That would just escalate things.
Yeah.
But so these guys went to the place where the boys' community lives. In that community, there was a public formal function, okay, where these people first of all apologized, right? They said sorry for the loss. They also pointed out that we would like to give you this money and this food to help you in this time of difficulty. We understand that this is nothing compared to your loss, but this is just, we feel it will help you. And then
they didn't say it was compensation because
compensation. How do you compensate a boy's life, right? It is not compensation. I mean, in their language, it is called sorry money.
Okay.
Right. So money to say sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry money.
Here is money.
Yeah. So they gave sorry money. The boy's father accepted that this was an accident and accepted the sorry money and said thank you. Some other elders in the boys' community said that, again, they also said thank you, and they said that they now consider the matter closed, right?
Okay.
Even then, the driver stayed away for some more time, just to make sure that some random people don't get excited.
Yeah.
And then, in theory, afterwards, the driver could have come back, and then everybody could have moved on in life.
Okay.
Now this is like old-fashioned way of settling disputes.
Yeah.
Right? This is nothing to do with the modern legal system.
Correct.
In fact, in the same incident, the modern legal system also got involved. Right?
Okay.
The police filed a case against the driver. Okay, and as part of that case, they decided that he was driving rashly. Note, the victims are not claiming that he was driving rashly, but police has decided. They took away the driver's license. So now the driver can't do a job, no income. And the driver has to keep coming to court twice a week. and that involves waiting in the court half a day, so the day is lost.
Yeah.
Right? And then that case dragged on for 2.5 years because you show up and the police isn't done yet, the evidence isn't there, this is not there. Then at some point when everything was in place, the judge wasn't there, and this just dragged on, and then 2.5 years later the case was finally dismissed, right?
Yeah.
Now let us compare and contrast these two systems.
Wow. Okay. Tough call. As in, I understand what the first system is about. The first system is about basically getting closure of sorts and then moving on with. It feels callous to say this, but at the same time, I understand what was attempted there, and at the same time, I also think that justice is. I'm confused.
No, so
let
us first list what the old system achieved. Right?
Okay.
A speedy and peaceful resolution. The whole thing was over in 5 days, not 2.5 years.
Correct.
The victims felt emotionally seen. Right?
That's true.
Right? Because in public it was acknowledged that there was a loss. Right? After all of this, there was a restoration of the previous relationships of the two communities. Right? People
Also
could go back to work and so on. Right? There was actual compensation for the victims. Again, we are not saying, money and food doesn't replace a boy, but at least they got something, right, which made them feel a little better.
I think there is a very interesting phrase called making them whole.
Making them whole, right? And there was also some sort of punishment for the offender, because he ended up having to pay, right? In fact, it was more than that, right? Because it is not just that offender. It is that offender's community and their community. So it's not just those two people involved who have to be part of this settlement. Everybody was part of the settlement.
Correct. The offender's family, uncles,
and at the end of
everybody came.
It allowed everybody to move on. Now let us compare this with what the modern legal system achieved. By contrast, the modern system was focused only on punishing the offender. Right?
Because justice.
It didn't really care about either making the victim whole or their emotional state. None of that, right? In fact, if the victims were at all involved in the system, it would have been painful for them to be part of the whole proceedings, right? It would be worse than not, and this. This happens in our cases. And third thing is that the modern system was so focused on not making a mistake that everything drags out, and in that it penalizes everybody. Because even though ultimately the driver was exonerated, he lost his job, he lost so many working days, right? So
by the way, this I should mention here, this did not happen in India, right?
New Guinea.
Very important.
But it could have happened in India, right?
It could have. I'm just saying that this particular incident that you narrated did not happen in India. Before people jump to conclusions.
Yes.
Don't jump to conclusions. So but man, are you trying to say that the traditional, not traditional, but this other system of judgment or this other system of whatever is better than the current system?
See, I'm not saying that it does. It certainly has a lot of disadvantages, and modern system certainly has a bunch of advantages, right? So just to take example, if those two elders hadn't reached some sort of an agreement as to what is a reasonable compensation, right? Or if the offenders community hadn't agreed to pay that, then things would have escalated, and then things get really bad in the old systems, right? Because then the solution would have been for the boys community to kill somebody from the drivers community, and then it does happen in some communities. When you don't reach a settlement, it just becomes a horrible thing that goes on for like generations, right? Also, it works well if the two communities had decent relationships to start with, and you're trying to restore those relations. If the relations were bad to start with, it is not going to work.
Correct.
But the point of this episode is that we just automatically assume that the modern way of doing justice is the correct thing. I mean, when I first read this example, it was a revelation to me that the modern justice system does nothing for the victim. It actually just puts the victim through a ringer unnecessarily, right? It is just focused on, I want to punish this guy, right? Also, it does nothing for restoring normal life, right? And it is so focused on not making a mistake that it drags out for 20 years.
That's true.
Right? So I'm not saying that we should now dismantle the modern system, right?
Thank you.
I am saying that we need to be aware of the shortcomings of the modern system, and that there are other things which have other advantages, right?
Yeah, because for a moment there it sounded like you were almost recommending a shadow government of sorts.
Well, actually this is true. It happens, right? For example, in India, we have Khap Panchayats, right?
Okay.
Now, every once in a while, a Khap Panchayat is in the news for doing something really horrible.
Correct.
What we forget, plus because we have this preconceived notion that modern justice system is the best, then anytime you hear the word Khap Panchayat, you assume that it is something horrible.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Correct.
What we forget is, one, there is a large number of cases where the panchayats handle things. They handle it well with all those advantages.
Correct.
Speedily, emotional needs are taken care of. People can move on, relationships are restored, all of that, right? The problem is those things don't make the news.
Correct.
Right? If out of 3,000 cases that a Khap Panchayat handles, 3 of them are terrible, those 3 will make national news, and you will assume that that system sucks. So, important point is, don't assume that just because something isn't using the modern justice system, that it is bad.
Okay. The example that you said makes complete sense, and also I agree that it's usually the mistakes that get highlighted and not the successes in such cases, because that's where the spotlight falls. But
just talking about shadow governments, right? There are shadow governments like this all over the world, not just Khap Panchayats, right? So, for example, in the US, the Amish community, they don't like going to the courts, right? They have their whole community. Their community is based around their church, and the elders in the church take such decisions.
Now that you mention it, there are these communities in our lives also. What we usually call the Samaj is essentially that kind of a shadow government community thing.
And we should keep in mind that this works all the time, and this is probably a good thing, right?
Until it isn't also.
Of course, right? Everything in moderation limits. Just don't be all the way to the extreme saying that the modern legal system is the only way of handling things, right?
Yeah, because a lot of people are often disillusioned with the current legal system, thinking, I've been trying to get something sorted out in the court, it's not working, so why not just go back to that system, is also an argument that you will hear from people. Is that right though?
Well, no, as in, the thing is that you don't want to get rid of the existing system. What you want to do is, before think of the modern legal system as the ultimate Brahmastra, right? Before that, try these simpler things, right?
Not endorsed by the movie, haven't watched it, but again, open to taking money from them if they are willing to give it to us.
One more situation where I think this kind of thinking can be important, right? Which is that there are at the level of society, you have the modern legal system, but there are other contexts, right? If there is a company, within a company, how do you handle disputes? Should you recreate something similar to the modern legal system, or could you be using one of these other techniques, right? In your extended family, in your community, right? There are places where you and I can actually influence things, and maybe if we learned about the advantages and disadvantages of different systems, we can do something better than just going with the default.
To some extent, I think this idea about introducing this system in companies makes a lot of sense, because oftentimes I have noticed that HR is in the middle of these two systems and not following either of them. So please decide this or that. Don't. Sorry.
Okay.
Pet peeve of mine.
So, I mean, that was generally the point of the episode, but one thing I want to add, which is that in this we discussed just one
Traditional method of.
a traditional method. In fact, there are many traditional methods, each with their own different strengths and weaknesses, from things in Iceland to gypsies to medieval England, all very interesting and all, I think, worthy of being discussed. So if you guys are interested, let us know either in the comments here or
Just
contact us. If we get enough interest, we will do an entire other episode on just other legal systems other than our own.
Other shadow governments. Yeah, we are not. You know what I'm thinking, and I know what you're thinking. We are not advocating for any shadow governments to supplant the current governmental systems. We are just trying to explain. We are just trying to educate. Is all, nothing else.
Yes.
Shrikant, Naveen.
Thank you.
This is Future IQ.
Thank you for watching till the end. If you liked this episode, check out these others. You might like them also. And please share with your friends. I'm sure they will also like these.